Realm Studio. I'm Paula, and I have I have a series of pictures to be working on today. So I was going to work on this one. It's a composite image right now, and I was going to work on the composition and straightening up how she looks and stuff. So But we decided that this one wasn't going to be in full color. This one is going to be just line art. So my dragonfly wing right here might be a little confusing. Okay, so I'm leaving in my blue line sketch, leaving that visible. Um, I think that it will look better if I actually move her down a little bit and have the forest like looming over her more. So we will scoot her down, come back up here to my working layer, and start working on this with black pen. We'll see how it goes. I'm not sure that I love how her face looks. So I might be correcting that on the fly a bit. And results may vary. Let's see. Let's use about a 25 for this to allow for variation in the line. Like, I'm not great at varying the line weight, but I have improved. Hmm. So today, I still did not plan a topic to talk about. So if anybody wants to chime in with something to talk about, that would be great. And if not, I might be forced to talk about what a couple of my friends on Twitter have been talking about, which is the difference between science fiction and fantasy. And it turned into this massive debate with very strong opinions, and like everybody, probably also including the people arguing, is absolutely sick of it now. So, yeah, don't make me do that. Okay, so if you're hearing any extra noise in the background, Miss Chaos is gaming. And she's in the next room, and she just gets a little shouty when she has her headset on. And I have tried to tell her about that. And she's working on it. But it's kind of hard to tell how successful she's been. Okay. I kind of want to strike a balance between vulnerable and capable in her face here. So just gonna work on that a little. And okay, so I've been writing for years. And everybody in the fantasy science fiction debate has also been writing for years, and they've had a lot more published than I have. They've had a lot more like commercial success, I suppose. And so I guess they can go ahead and argue all they like, but I feel like just seems to me that most arguments of this nature result from an improper framing of the subject. I swear, if they thought about it, they would actually find that they agree. I don't know why they're arguing. Just guys gotta fuss at each other sometimes. So, what it is, to me, the difference between science fiction and fantasy is not so much as a question of two different genres, which may well be two different genres. I don't know that genre is the helpful thing, though, to try and determine what the difference is. So, I think she looks a little too calm in that expression. Let's dial that back. And a little bit more anxiety in the eyebrows here. And Miss Chaos keeps yapping. So yeah, I think that the proper frame is what is each classification trying to accomplish? Well, so in fantasy, you have your fantastical elements that of stuff that may not exist in the real world, and in science fiction, you also have your elements of things that may not exist in the real world, or at least not yet. But at the time it was written, it seemed plausible that it might happen sometime in the future. Yeah. So let me see. I cannot concentrate. Okay. Let's see how that looks. Not quite. Not quite there yet. I'll have to come back to it. Okay. And I do think in many ways it is an artificial divide. Because in my stories I have a lot of things that are, scientifically explainable, and also a lot of stuff that's weird. A lot of fantastical elements that maybe can't be explained or are explained only thinly. And to me, that actually reflects more closely to real life, because not everything that you see in real life is going to be explicable. So if you have, so many times the argument is, if you have a story with magic in it, is it science fiction or is it fantasy? Obviously, it must be fantasy. No. The question is, if the story has anything that is a genuine scientific principle in it, does that make it science fiction? No. I mean, if you have like real world physics in your fantasy novel that powers your trebuchet, that does not make your fantasy novel a science fiction novel. See, did she have a ponytail or the messy bun in this? I don't know. I think she actually had a ponytail in the story. I should maybe modify this. Oh, I do kind of like the whole messy bun thing. I can do that in the other picture. Okay. So if something like that doesn't automatically change a story to science fiction, then why should it stand to reason if inexplicable elements also occur in everyday life? It's reasonable to expect inexplicable elements. Then why should that sort of thing dictate that your story is fantasy? So if you have um, a magical ritual or a religious element in your science fiction, like space story? Is your story just fantasy with a science fiction veneer on it? I don't know. I think that it's likely to be a very good story because you're thinking of more than just mechanical things. You've enriched your world that you've built with see, with things that are also expected and plausible in life. Like I really think that a lot of the science fiction versus fantasy debate is just picking your religion. And I do think that the genres were artificially separated for the most part out of a desire to keep religion out of fiction, out of science fiction. During this artificial separation that also pitted science against religion, that's also a false dichotomy. And you can be a scientist and still be a devout Christian, for example. Hold on just a second. All right, Miss Chaos stopped by for a second. So, if it wasn't for that false dichotomy between science and religion, we wouldn't be having the science fiction versus fantasy debate either. At least I don't think so. And in any case, I think everybody who was debating it over the weekend is wrong. And I'm the one with the right perspective on it. But again, that is kind of the nature of internet debates. People being wrong on the internet. So yeah, the first mistake was buying into the false dichotomy. And the second was ignoring what makes a story good. And you know what? If you don't care about the characters, then you might as well just read instruction manuals and textbooks. So, your characters need to be entire people when you write. and they need to have different reactions to the inexplicable. There should be a good balance of weirdness in your stories, of stuff that, nobody's figured out yet, and nobody's really that likely to prove or disprove in the future either. There will always be unknowns, things that are completely unknowable, and they will always leave us as a whole, as humans, just kind of vaguely unsettled. Let's see. I need to modify the line of this hem. Soften that up. So, for being tired of the whole debate, I still talked about it. So I totally fell into the trap. Uh, I know. I can't help it. People. Really, the main problem is people just aren't asking the question at the beginning of it. Like, this is presented as a dichotomy. Is it really? Is that the most useful way of looking at it? And there's actually a lot of topics like that. Most things that are presented as dichotomies are not. Okay, that's all the time I have for tonight. But thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you have a chance, well, if you have a chance, why don't you stop by my website, www.otherrealmstudio.com, and check out my other work. And yeah, I lost where I had that set up where I could just click on it and it would just pop up. And you can also look at my comic, Soulbound Adrift. It is the first issue of a 10-issue miniseries. I'm going to have to look at how these things go together. And it's about Becca, who is a pragmatic med student who's not going to let a few nightmares stop her from graduating and all. But when tragedy strikes her family, shortly after, she finds herself pulled into the realm of her nightmares. And she must find her way home before her soul comes wandering back without the rest of her. So I have print copies of that available on my website, otherrealmstudio.com. And also you can look me up on Amazon for the Kindle version. I'd appreciate it if you'd give it a look. And that's all for tonight. So, good night, and I'll see you in the other realm.